Welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, I'm Kelly, and this is a place where we talk about real life, sustainable fat loss, mindset, habits, and doing the things that actually work. If this episode hits home for you, I'd love for you to share it, leave a review, or send it to a friend who needs to hear it. That is how this message gets to the people who need it most and how I can help more people. Today's episode came from a conversation that I was actually having with my mom. And honestly, it started with me venting a bit about the world, but then ended with me self reflecting on my need to always feel comfortable. What's happening in the Kelly Counts Macros Clubhouse membership? Before we get into it, quick reminder, everything we talk about here, the workouts, the nutrition, the reps, the consistency, this is exactly what we practice inside of the 8 week shred and cement into inside of the Clubhouse membership. So this isn't about perfection. It's about building skills you can repeat. If you've been thinking about joining, this episode will give you a very, very clear picture of why we do what we do. So I was chatting with my mom and we were talking about how people today are wildly uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. I said something to her like, what do you think people did back in the old days when they couldn't find water or when they only ate a deer every 7 to 10 days? So think about that. There was no Amazon, there was no DoorDash, there was no fridge full of options, there was no Starbucks around the corner. If you didn't find water, you were thirsty. If you didn't hunt, you didn't eat. If you didn't move, you didn't survive. So discomfort wasn't optional, it was life. And then fast forward to today, and our entire world is designed around comfort. Temperature controlled homes, food available 24/7. Heck, you can get it delivered right to your door. Entertainment in our pocket, on our cell phone. Instant gratification everywhere. No waiting to watch your television show. You can get it immediately. And while comfort isn't bad, living in constant comfort is slowly killing progress because growth lives just outside the comfort zone. I had a shirt that my friend bought me when I was training for a marathon. It was a tank and it was green and it read, "Growth is right outside the comfort zone." And it was so true, especially while I was training for a marathon. And that's what I want to talk about today. 5 very clear ways we see comfort addiction, I'll call it, showing up in the world right now, especially when it comes to health and fat loss and self sabotage and consistency. So, number one, we avoid short discomfort but tolerate long term pain. People will say they don't have time for a 15-minute workout, but sometimes, a lot of times, and somehow they have time to scroll their phone for 45 minutes or watch 3 episodes of a show or fall into a Netflix binge. And right now, a widely popular thing people are watching on TV is Love is Blind, dating shows, mindless scrolling shows, things that require zero effort but give you that quick dopamine hit that our brains love. The brains love that. But here's the hard truth, skipping a 15-minute workout feels comfortable now, but carrying extra weight, low energy, joint pain, diseases that come from obesity, and frustration feel uncomfortable later. Not only that, but it's more expensive later when you have to deal with all the medical bills and you're not feeling well. And it's just not a good spot to be in as we age. So the brain always chooses now over later unless we train it otherwise. Number two, we choose mental escape over mental effort. Tracking food feels hard. Planning meals feels overwhelming. Thinking ahead feels like work. So instead, we escape. We binge Netflix. We scroll Instagram. We tell ourselves we'll start on Monday. But the truth is, tracking food isn't physically hard. It's mentally uncomfortable because it requires awareness, and awareness is threatening to the brain. But once you're aware, you're responsible. and responsibility is uncomfortable. Number three, we avoid physical discomfort in the smallest ways. People don't want to drink their water. They rather have their coffee or their iced mocha or their sweet tea or their Diet Coke or their energy drink. Why? Because water feels boring. Water doesn't give them dopamine. Water doesn't stimulate. But dehydration keeps people tired, keeps people hungry, keeps people foggy and craving more stimulation. So the brain says, give me the thing that feels good now, not the thing that helps you later. Number four, we recreate chaos so we don't have to change. This one is big. Some people live in constant chaos. No groceries, no plan, no prep, no routine, no 15-minute workouts. And they'll say, life is just too crazy right now. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes chaos is self-created because chaos gives you an excuse, a justification. If you didn't meal prep, you couldn't stick to your plan. If your schedule was wild, it's not your fault. If everything was unorganized, you did your best. And the brain would rather stay in familiar chaos than step into that unfamiliar discipline, which discipline is the word of the year inside of our Clubhouse membership. Even when chaos isn't serving you. Number five, we confuse comfort with safety. And this is where the brain science comes in. Your brain's number one job is to keep you alive, not to make you successful. And your brain equates familiar with safe, even if the familiar thing is overeating, even if the familiar thing is starting and stopping diets, even if the familiar thing is quitting when it gets hard, or saying, this just isn't for me. I can't do this. And if you failed the diet before, your brain remembers that. So when you try again, your brain says, last time hurt, last time failed. Let's avoid that. So it pulls you back towards that comfort. And not because it hates you, but because it's trying to protect you, even when that protection is outdated. This is why people say they want change, but don't change. Wanting change is really easy. Putting in the reps is hard, and growth only happens through reps. So let's talk a little bit about what's actually happening in the brain, because maybe once you understand this, a lot of your behavior stops feeling like a personal flaw and starts making sense. So your brain is wired for efficiency and survival, not for transformation. So from a scientific standpoint, your brain's main job is to conserve energy and keep you safe. It's constantly scanning for threats, uncertainty, and anything that feels unfamiliar. So when something is familiar, even if it's not healthy, the brain labels it as safe. And that's why comfort feels so good. Familiar routines use less energy. Automatic habits require less thought. Predictable patterns feel safer to the nervous system. When you reach for your phone instead of doing a workout, or choose Peacock instead of tracking your food, your brain gets a quick hit of dopamine. Dopamine is that neurotransmitter that I've talked about, tied to the reward, the pleasure, the motivation. The brain loves it. It says, yes, this feels good. Do this again. But when you do something new, like tracking your food, doing your strength training, doing your 15-minute train with Kate workout, stretching, planning ahead, your brain has to work harder. And that effort, it shows up as discomfort. Your brain interprets that effort as a risk, even though, right, nothing's actually dangerous. Nothing's dangerous planning your food or meal prepping or doing your workout. It says, what if this doesn't work? What if you fail again? What if you're bad at this? And if you've air quote dieted before and it didn't work, your brain, it remembers that emotional experience. The brain doesn't forget failure. It stores as a protective mechanism. So the next time you try to change, Your brain pulls you back towards what's familiar. That is why I always say within the clubhouse and in the shred, the only way to fail is to quit. Because if you just do that next rep, that is not failure. Okay. Not because you're weak, not because you lack discipline, but because your brain is just trying to protect you all the time. Okay. But here's the part that matters most, and I want you to hear this. The brain is plastic. That means it's changeable, it's trainable. This is called neuroplasticity. So every time you repeat a behavior, you strengthen that neural pathway. Think of it like walking through tall grass. The first time it's hard, it's uncomfortable, but every time you walk through that same path, it gets clearer and easier and faster. I guess right now, where I live in Erie, PA, we should be talking about snow. Think of it like walking through tall snow. The first time is hard, it's uncomfortable, but every time you walk through that same snow path, it gets clearer and easier and faster. So that's the same thing that happens in your brain. Scrolling instead of moving, you're making that strong pathway. Skipping meals and then overeating in the evening or at night, strong pathway. Starting over every Monday, strong pathway. But here's the good news, you can build new ones. And this is what we work on inside of the shred in the clubhouse. This is what is different about me. This is what's different about my program. The brain doesn't need massive change to do that. It just needs repetition. We put in the reps. Small actions, tiny steps, done consistently tell the brain, this is safe, this is familiar, this is who we are now. That's why 15-minute Train with Kate workouts matter. That's why tracking imperfectly still counts when you're out at that Mexican restaurant that does not have the nutrition facts on its website. That's why drinking your water, 8 ounces of water, before you start your meal and halfway through your meal matters. Each rep weakens that old pathway and strengthens the new one. And at first, that discomfort is loud, but over time, the comfort shifts. What once felt hard becomes automatic. What once felt awkward becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes your baseline. And that's why people who have changed don't rely on motivation. When I was a cardio queen and I first started running, I didn't want to do it, but I thought it was the answer to losing weight to reveal toned muscles. I didn't want to run. It was a hot day. I'll never forget it. Ben was very little. I was nursing. I was hormonal. I needed time to myself. And I just thought, I'm going to run right out that front door. And I remember I ran to the stop sign and back, and I was huffing and puffing. I had a side cramp. It didn't feel good. I did not have any of those good hormones flowing while I was doing it. I couldn't wait to be done. And from here to the stop sign is not even, we live in the country. It's not even a half mile. And I got home and I felt better. The hormones were flowing, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to repeat this, and I'm going to repeat this, and I'm going to repeat this, and I'm not going to give up because I felt a little bit better. Next thing you know, I'm running a marathon. I was in so much discomfort in that first run. And then a year and a half, 2 years later, I want to run a marathon. How does that happen? Fast forward to strength training. I only wanted to run. I didn't want to strength train. I didn't want to lift up a weight. Some of my marathon people that was training with, they were doing certain days, they were doing strength training at the YMCA. And they kept saying, Kelly, you need to go. And I kept thinking, no, on those days, I'm just going to run 6 or 8 miles. I don't need to do the strength training. And I continued to do that. And I continued to not get the results that I wanted with my body composition. So then once I decided, okay, I'm going to do the weight training, but I need to know how, I went to a trainer and boy, was I uncomfortable. I walked into this dirty gym that was all men with these big machines. The cardio equipment was broken. My options were weight benches, chin up bars, and a bunch of different machines I had no idea how to use. And that is when it changed. And I was uncomfortable. I didn't want to walk in that gym. I was embarrassed. Number two, I just wanted to hop on a treadmill and do what I always knew how to do. But I had to step outside of my comfort zone to finally get the biceps and the abs that I wanted. So this is how you just can't rely on motivation. You need to train your brain. And this is where most people get stuck. They quit before the brain has time to adapt. They stop right when the discomfort is highest, right before the new pathway sticks, right before the behavior becomes easier. The goal isn't to eliminate discomfort. The goal is to expect it, understand it, and move through it anyway. And that's what I did. And that's why I love strength training now. Because discomfort isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign your brain is learning something new. So how do we fix this? First is awareness. You cannot change a pattern you don't see. So start noticing when you're choosing comfort over growth. And this happened with my nutrition. I was just too comfortable with eating whatever I wanted and going off the rails on the weekends. Okay. I had to change that pattern. And it's not judging, not shaming, just noticing. Second, shrink the discomfort. Your brain doesn't need a massive change. It just needs proof. A 15-minute workout, one tracked meal, one bottle of water, one planned dinner. And these are the reps, and you just keep repeating the reps. Third, reframe discomfort as training. Discomfort doesn't mean something's wrong. It just means something's new. And every skill you have was once uncomfortable. Think about it. Driving, when you learned how to drive a car, your first job, strength training, like I just talked about, tracking your food. You didn't fail, you trained. Fourth, stop waiting to feel motivated. I say this all the time. Motivation comes after action, not before it. Sitting around on your couch, watching Real Housewives on Peacock, waiting for that motivation, not going to happen. It comes after the action. Action creates evidence. Evidence builds confidence. Confidence makes it easier to leave the comfort zone next time. Fifth, and of course, you know me, consistency. Practice consistency, not intensity. Everyone wants a transformation. Very few people want the reps, but reps are where it's built, not in motivation, not in perfection, and showing up when it's uncomfortable. And here's the thing I really want you to hear. You are not broken because your brain prefers comfort. That's human, but you're responsible for training it differently. The world will always offer comfort. Your job is to choose growth anyway. And here's the part where I raise my hand and say, I like comfort too. I really do. So I don't know. When I think about my day, let me walk you through it because this is where people start nodding their heads and realizing this isn't a them problem. It's an all of us problem. I want to wake up in a comfortable bed. Honestly, I don't even want to sleep in a hotel bed anymore. I want my pillow. I want my bed. I want my routine. I want my comfort. I get up. I want my Diet Mountain Dew. It's always in the fridge. I have one a day. I don't want to think about it. It's there. That's comfort. I want my kids to be healthy, mentally and physically. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable as I send them off to school. I want them safe. I want them happy. I want things to feel smooth for them. That's comfort. I don't want my daughter's feelings hurt by a bully. I don't want my son to sink into himself and not socialize. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of technology. So as my workday goes on, when something doesn't work at my job, when there's a new platform or a new system or an upgrade, I don't want to feel uncomfortable figuring it out. I want it to just work. The spinning wheel when the internet slows, I hate it. I don't want to be uncomfortable learning something new. For lunch, I want it protein forward. I want the foods already in the house. I like my deliveries. I like my Walmart delivery. I like my Instacart delivery. I want everything delivered so that the fridge is stocked because I planned ahead so I don't have to think in the moment. That's comfort. Yes, I use delivery services. Amazon shows up at my door because it's easy, because it's comfortable, because I don't want to run around after work. And then the afternoon hits. 2 or 3 o'clock rolls around. My energy dips a little bit. Lola has volleyball after school. I go to pick her up. It's easier to just sit in my car and scroll TikTok or Instagram. Do I want to hop out and walk until she gets out of practice? Do I want to get my steps in every day? No. I want to sit. I want to scroll. I want to relax. But I know I need to move my body even when it's uncomfortable. At night, I don't want to be uncomfortable either, right? I don't want to clean the kitchen. I don't want to close it down. I don't want to wipe the counters. I'd rather just go to bed. And when it comes to my workouts, I don't want to be uncomfortable stretching. I don't want to try yoga or Pilates, even though I know my body needs it, because being bad at something feels uncomfortable. On the weekends, I want time with my family. I want time with my husband. And when I don't get it, I feel uncomfortable, emotionally uncomfortable. When they have plans for the weekend that don't include me. When my husband has a fantasy football party, he's not going to be with me. When my daughter wants to hang out with her boyfriend, she doesn't want to be with me. When my son rather play basketball 24/7, he's not going to be with me. And that feels uncomfortable. I want my shows to load instantly. I cannot stand when the spinning wheel comes on when I'm trying to watch my housewives, right? Salt Lake City right now, killing it, loving the reunion. I want it now. We want everything now. We want everything easy. We want everything fast. We want everything comfortable. And listen, none of this, it doesn't make us lazy or broken. It makes us human, living in a world designed for comfort. But here's the problem. When every small discomfort is avoided, we lose our tolerance for the discomfort that actually creates the growth. We don't want to feel hungry, even though hunger is not an emergency. We don't want to feel sore. We don't want to feel awkward. We don't want to feel challenged. We don't want to feel bored. So we stay exactly where we are. And this is where I always come back to that phrase I say all the time, hunger is not an emergency. Being uncomfortable is not an emergency either. Discomfort doesn't mean danger. It means growth is nearby. And when you start seeing how often you choose comfort, not judging it, just noticing it, that's when you start choosing differently on purpose. This week inside the clubhouse, we made a low calorie strawberry cake that my family literally begs for around Valentine's Day. And honestly, every other day of the year, it's light, it's fluffy, it's sweet, and hits that nostalgic dessert craving without blowing your calories for the day. The kind of cake you don't feel guilty having a slice of or two. It's one of those recipes where people take a bite and say, there's no way that this is low calorie. And that's the point, right? All the macros are done, the math is done, each ingredient's already entered and clickable, shoots right into the app. You don't have to guess, you don't have to estimate, you don't have to do the hard part. So if you're a person who thinks dessert is the thing that always derails you, this cake will change your mind. Um, Celebrating on Instagram this week, Debbie, who's down 32 pounds and 26 inches. She didn't want another quick fix. She wanted the belly fat gone. Her son looked at her and said, Mom, you are ripped. So that's what happens when you stop chasing comfort and start putting in the reps. And that is why we do this work. If this episode hit you, I want you to ask yourself one question. Where am I choosing comfort that's costing me growth? And then choose one small rep today. What will that one small rep be? Not tomorrow, not Monday, today. Because you're always one decision away from building a new pattern. Always doing better than you think you are, and growth is right outside the comfort zone. I'll see you next week.